Hello and welcome to the next tutorial from Excess Gaming, and in this one we're going to show you how to process a crime scene and how to deal with suspects and get them put in jail. So we've responded to a shop robbery and I have the suspects already in custody. What I need to do now is gather evidence from the scene, and then we'll transport the suspects to PD and we'll process them there. So in each patrol vehicle you'll find a number of items that will help you gather the evidence. So we'll need to have the evidence bags, which we already got from the station. We'll need to get fingerprint kits, fingerprint tape, the fingerprint reader, we use that on the suspects themselves, and GSR field test to see if they've fired any weapons. And we'll need to have a camera, and that should be pretty much everything. So again, making sure we lock our vehicles. We'll go to the crime scene now, and the way that we can view the evidence is if we press 4 for me and get our flashlight up, right click, and it will then highlight evidence that's on the ground. So we can see there's a shell casing here, some more shell casings, and we can see the trajectory of the bullets that they fired. There seems to be no fingerprints per se, so it looks like they weren't successful in completing the robbery. If they were to complete the robbery, there would be a fingerprint that we could gather. Okay, but we'll just have a quick look to make sure if there's no other evidence, but they will show up with either green or red circles. The red circles normally denote any blood, so if we were to shoot somebody and they would escape, they would leave blood trails that we could track and everything else. Okay, so we're happy with the evidence we've got. Now what we need to do is using our work and then objects, we need to put down a little evidence card. Okay, so what we do with this is we just place down these evidence cards so that when we take photos in a minute, we can identify where the evidence that we collected came from, essentially. Okay, so we'll then back up a little bit here, put our flashlight away, face towards the cards, and then I put the camera into number 5, so I press that, and you'll see that it highlights all the evidence. Okay, so we can just take a picture. These pictures will get sent to Discord that we can use in court cases, and we can take a picture here of the shots that they fired, so we can see that we've got rifle and pistol fire used in this incident. Okay, and then we just press escape to close that. We get the flashlight back out, and then we'll move forward and we'll collect by pressing G. So we'll take a shell case in there. And then we're looking for another one there, and there. And because we've got multiple shooters, we'll try and gather as much, if not all, of the evidence as we can, so we can make sure that we gather everything. And once we're happy, we'll go back into the objects and we'll remove the cards to make it all nice and clean. If there was lots of evidence that we weren't necessarily going to collect, because you only really need one of each shell casing and blood type and fingerprint, etc., and there may be a lot more, we would then use the command that I'm going to show you in a second. So we'll just remove this one. Okay, so what we need to do now is in the chat do /clear evidence. Okay, and what this will do is it will clear up the crime scene so that if a future crime happens here, we're not going to get that confused with evidence from a previous crime. Okay, the evidence does disappear over time, but you may have multiple incidents happen in the same location in short succession, so you just need to make sure that the evidence that you're collecting is from the current scene, and once you've finished, to clear the scene to make sure that you're not contaminating future crime scenes. Okay. So that is how to gather the evidence from the crime scene itself, and we look at our inventory and you see that we've got some filled up evidence bags now, denoted by the red tape at the top. So we can see we've got spent casing from a 40 caliber 5.56 NATO, so those would be the rifle ones, and then the 40 will be from the pistol. Okay, so we only really needed one of these four, but we gathered them all anyway. Okay, just to make sure that we didn't miss any sort of evidence. Alright, so that is that all done. And what we'll do now is we'll head to the police station, and we'll then process the suspects there. We'll take their fingerprints, take a DNA swab, we'll take any contraband they've got on them off of them, and then we'll get them processed. So we'll cut to that. We've come to the PD with the suspects in the back. What we need to do now is get them out, get them into a cell, and get them processed. Okay, so again, we'll use our interactions, take them out of the vehicle. Alright, if you've got multiple suspects, ideally you want to have multiple officers to help you control them all. Alright, but for the purposes of this, these are compliant suspects, so it's not a problem. But if you were on your own, you'd take them out one at a time. Alright, and then for this one, I'm going to start with the person in the red. What I need to do is I need to search them. So we'll go to work, police actions, and then search. Alright, now you need to make sure you're keeping an eye on where you put this stuff. So we're going to be taking the weapon from them. Okay, so this row is going to be for the suspects in the red. We'll leave the ammo because that's fine, and we'll take the money bag because that's what they would have got from the scene. Okay, and we'll take the access tool because that's also contraband, but they can keep the rest of the stuff there. It looks like they've already been given a citation by us earlier. Naughty naughty. So that's the one in the red dealt with, and then it looks like they're uncuffed, but they are still technically cuffed at this time. Okay, so we've taken all the contraband from them, and then we'll do the suspect in the grey. We'll do the same thing, police actions and search. Okay, and they've just got a pistol, so again we'll scroll down and make sure we're putting the evidence on its own separate line. And they don't have any other contraband on them. Okay. Now, we have in our inventory a fingerprint kit. Okay, so if you do your third eye, okay, then you can fingerprint the person. Alright. This will take a copy of their fingerprint and put it into some evidence for you. And then again, we'll perform a GSR test to see if they've fired a weapon recently. And this will be stored. Okay, and then I don't have the DNA test, so I'll get that out of here. So we get DNA swab, put that down here. So we'll put the fingerprint and the GSR on that line so we can keep that in place. And again, now that we've got the kit, it will show collect DNA, so we can take a DNA sample from them as well. Okay, now if the suspect's wearing gloves, it's harder to take fingerprints from them. So when you click on it, it will say this person seems to be wearing gloves. Okay, so you need to tell them to remove their gloves. They can do that by doing the /glove command. So you say, excuse me, can you remove your gloves? Those that are under arrest have to comply with all of your instructions. Okay, so they'll have to take their gloves off. If they are refusing to take their gloves off, then just request staff, and staff will come along because it becomes a rule-breaking incident. Okay, but most people understand what's going on. They've now taken their gloves off, and I can then take this person's fingerprints, and I can do the GSR test, and I can collect the DNA. So we've gathered evidence from the suspects. What we're going to do now is put them in cells. And again, you would normally escort them unless they're compliant, in which case they'll do as you're told. So you say, okay, follow me to the cells, please. And they'll walk to the cells. Now you want to make sure you put them in separate cells. Okay. If you're struggling for room, there are additional cells at the other stations. But normally you don't have that many suspects at any one time. Okay, lady in grey, if you want to go in here, please. And then lady in red, if you want to go in here, please. Okay, if you want to step up to the glass for me, please, lady in grey. And then you remove the handcuffs. Make sure you remove the handcuffs through the bars or the glass here. Don't do it while you're inside the cell. Okay, because there may be violent criminals and they may try to assault you while you're inside the cell. Alright, so just make your life easier. So, what you want to do now is we're going to start processing this paperwork. Okay, so we've gathered the evidence from the scene and we've gathered the evidence from the suspects that we arrested at the scene. So what we need to do now is just use that evidence to identify the suspects. That can be done by opening up your inventory and with the evidence bags simply click it, drag it over to use, and you'll get some relevant information here. Now the main thing for shell casings is the serial number, okay, because every weapon that's purchased from ammunition is registered, so we can run that serial number and then use that to identify people that have been shooting. So if we go to weapons and then we paste in serial number, come back here and we've got registered to Sarah Pickleson. Okay, so we know that one of the young ladies that we're dealing with is Sarah Pickleson, so highlight it, Control C, and then go to profiles, Control V, press enter, Sarah Pickleson. There we go, and we can see that she's got a vehicle registered. Okay, but that wasn't found at the scene, so that's not a problem. So we know that she is one of the suspects. There's a blank gap here for fingerprint. Okay, so what we need to do is put her fingerprint into the system and then save it, and that will then mean that any other time that we find her fingerprints, we will instantly come back to their profile. So for the fingerprint evidence, we've got this one here, and this is why it's key to make sure that you organise the evidence within your inventory, because it can get a bit jumbled up as to who's whose. But again, for the fingerprints, drag over to use, and then the fingerprint ID, click on it to copy it. We know this is Sarah Pickleson because we put all that stuff in one line, so we can come over to here, Control V to paste it in, and then save. Okay, and that will now save that information so that in the future, if she commits another crime and we find her fingerprints, we just have to run it straight away and it will come back to her. We haven't got to try and identify her any other way. Okay, and then we're going to do the same for the other suspect, and then I'll come back to you when I'm actually filling out the reports. Alright then, madam, so you're going to be charged with armed robbery, accessory to armed robbery, and brandishing a firearm. Okay. criminal use of a weapon, not brandishing a firearm. Do you plead guilty or not guilty to the charges?
Guilty.
Okay, thank you. Madam in the red? So you're being charged with armed robbery, accessory to armed robbery, and criminal use of a weapon. Do you plead guilty or not guilty to the charges?
Guilty.
Alright, thank you very much. Okay, so the reason why we list off the charges is obviously so that they know what they're being charged with. And we then ask them if they plead guilty or not guilty. If they plead guilty, then that's nice and easy. We can just process them. If they were to say not guilty, then what we would do is, depending on the type of crimes, they would either get released on an ankle monitor, or they'd be remanded in custody. Okay, obviously they were read their rights when they were placed into the vehicle. That was done off camera. And if they'd wanted to, they could have called a lawyer or a public defender, in which case they could then negotiate their jail sentences. But again, that's something that's not going to be covered in the scope of this video. So they've both pled guilty to the charges, so we're going to just finish off this report, put them in jail, and then we will cover the storing of the evidence and how that's all dealt with. So we're going to put the case as closed in the MDT because they've both pled guilty. The fine amount is going to be the recommended, okay, 4950. And then the jail time is going to be 20 months or 20 minutes. Okay, and then we just have to make sure that we put this down here as well. Okay. So this side here is for the server to deal with, this side here is for our records. So we'll save this now. We haven't put where the evidence is being stored at this time, but we can do that in a minute. But we just need to make sure that we are just getting this done. So you'll see here that there's separate ones for each person, so you just need to make sure that they're both being put in there, okay, and that the charges are the same for both of them. Alright, so we've got armed robbery, accessory to armed robbery, and criminal use of a weapon. So we just need to make sure that, yeah, both the suspects, and it will list for every suspect that's involved. Just make sure that all of that is updated. And then once we're happy, we will save this. That will get sent over to our database. Okay, and then we're going to issue them the fine, and then we'll send them to jail. And we'll do that for each one. And there we go. So they're now off to jail. And you can see that they're no longer in the cells. Now what we need to do is just need to make sure that we're going to store the evidence in the right place. So with things like weapons, we need to make sure that these are put into evidence bags and not just left loose. Okay, so there is a command for that. So we've got bag EV, or bag evidence if you want to type out the whole thing. And you'll see a list of items that we can put into the evidence bags. Okay, now you need to pay attention as to the location of these items. Alright, because you've got, you could potentially have the same weapons as you, and you don't want to bag your own weapons as evidence. Thankfully in this case they've got a carbine rifle and S&S pistol. We don't have any of those, so we know that those are going to be the ones, so we just click on it. That'll get put into an evidence bag, and again with the S&S pistol. Okay, so now when we look, everything's in evidence bags. Okay, suspects are in jail, we've bagged up all the evidence, and now we're going to put it in the evidence storage. So in the main PD, it's just up here. Okay, once you come in, you see evidence dash, press E and you'll open it up. Now you have to have a separate slot for each case. Okay, so start from number 1, press enter, see if you find anything. So there's nothing in slot number 1. Okay, so what we can do is just drag all of the evidence that we gathered into here, and then we'll make a note that this is where we've stored it in the file. So if at any point we need to refer back to any of the evidence taken, people know where to look. Okay. And again, if you've got so much evidence you need to use multiple ones, that's fine, but they've got, you know, substantial storage, you should be fine. Okay, so this is drawer number 1. It does say stash 7, that is different for each station, but we don't need to really worry about that. The main thing is the drawer number, because we put what station it's at rather than the stash number to make it easier to identify. So this is going to be drawer number 1. So we'll reopen the MDT, go back to our incident, and we will then put in here that it is in drawer number 1. Okay, and I already put in here RHPD, Rockford Hills Police Department. Okay, so we just make sure that that's all fine and dandy, and then press save again. That'll update on the MDT and on the database, and now that is all done. So now you know how to gather evidence from a crime scene, gather evidence from suspects, search a suspect, and jail a suspect, and then where to store the evidence. Okay, and that's it for this video.